name is Paige Wheeler. I work at the STEM Outreach Center at NMSU. I'm a program specialist there. Why would we even consider using Google Slides when we're talking about digital escape rooms? There are 3 areas where I think they could be useful. So the first is as a homepage for an escape room. So this would be, you're sort of creating a mini standalone one-page website as your escape room, and you link out to puzzles from that one slide. So it's just a single slide in a presentation, and then maybe you have a link for a YouTube video or a link to an article or a link to a Google Doc or a sheet or another set of slides that have your puzzles and questions in those other resources, and then this slide just serves as your hub. The second way you can use it is to host the entire room. So you can have all of your puzzles and questions are in one slide deck, and you can either go sequentially, just move through them, or you can use links to jump around within the deck. And that's sort of the model that I'll be demonstrating today. But again, this is just one model of a slide, Google Slides escape room. I will have on that resource page, I will have some other samples that teachers and educators have created and shared online. And so you're welcome. I would encourage you to go explore, find other people's escape rooms as well, and see what's going to work best for your class. The third way we could use slides is to make puzzles or clues. So this would be if you're pairing it with the homepage, or you're pairing it with a Google Forms-based escape room or a Google Sites-based escape room, and you want one clue or one puzzle to use Google Slides. So you can even you could have a question and some answers in a Google slide, or a multi-step puzzle in a Google slide that you then link to your other room. So those are the 3 ways I think you can use Google Slides. And so now we're going to dive in and see what that might actually look like. So I'm going to pull up my Google Slides, and we're going to start with the back end. This is an escape room that I made earlier this month for Pi Day, and you will have this link as well if you want to try this out with your students. If you're a math nerd and you want to have some fun, feel free, try it out. So this is what it looks like on the back end. You see on the left-hand side of the screen, I have all of my slides that are in the presentation. So I start with a sort of a landing page. So when I share this out, so like if I would share out that bit.ly link that I just dropped in the chat, that is the link to my Google Slides. So if a student opened that up, it would just look like a web page for them. It wouldn't look like a Google slide. And so they would land on this homepage, and then they can explore and click around, and it would take them through the other parts of the slide and the other pieces of the escape room. To start with, I need to make this room. It's very similar if you're familiar with the Bitmoji classroom style of slides. It's very similar to that. I did throw a Bitmoji of myself into this particular escape room. That is not a requirement, but if that's something you use and you enjoy, feel free. It can sort of personalize it and add that little, one-on-one touch for your students. But again, not a requirement by any means. How would we set up, well, before I do that, are people familiar with the Bitmoji style classroom in Google Slides? That's a completely new turn of phrase. Okay, I'm seeing some shakings of heads. So it's essentially just creating a room and populating it in Google Slides. So to do that, I go into my Google Drive, I create a new slide, and I get a new presentation. And I just want a blank layout. So I can go to layout or blank, or I can select all and delete. There's a couple ways to clear the slide. And then I want to start with a background image. So I just go to insert an image, and I'm going to search the web, and Google's nice image search toolbar comes up. And I just want to type in room background. And so then there's a lot of different room backgrounds that come up. So I could have a classroom, I could have a kitchen, I could have a living room, I could have an office, I can have a window or a not window. I like this one today. So I just drag and drop into my slide, and I'm going to make it as big as my slide is, and then recenter it a little bit. So now I have a back room. I have a room, and I can add things to my room. So maybe I want to add a table. And then I'm going to also, so I type in what I want to look for, and then I'm going to type transparent background or transparent PNG. So if I didn't type that and I just searched table, I might get something that looks like this. So it's a nice picture of a table, but there's a room behind the table that I don't want. So we're going to get rid of that. Or I'm trying to look at one that might be, or like this. This one, again, it's a nice table, and but it's got a white background, and I don't want the white background because I want my room background. So if I get rid of that and then add that transparent PNG or transparent background, a PNG is just a type of image file that can be easier to reshape and manipulate. But transparent background, transparent PNG, it gives you a table that doesn't have any background behind it. So now you can see, I just see my table. I don't have any white or other background behind it. This does have a large border, so I am going to crop this one. So I can just double click on the image, or I can right click and choose cropped image from the menu. And then I'm going to very carefully grab the black bar here and drag it down. And then from the bottom and drag it up. And we'll even go in on the sides. There we go. And then I can just hit enter or click outside the shape, and now I have my table. It's a little bit big for this space, so I'm going to shrink it down, resize it just a little bit. And then I like it sort of there. And if we have a table, maybe we want a chair to go with the table. All right, I like that one. That's a fun blue chair. So again, you can see it doesn't have that white background. It's just the chair. This one is nicely cropped already, so I don't want to crop it any further, but it is a little big, so I'm going to shrink it down and I think a little bit more. All right, but now it sort of looks odd. I want the chair on the other side of the table. So how can I do that? There's two ways to do it. One is I click on the chair and then I right click and choose order. And then I can do send backwards. I could send it to back, but that would put it all the way to the back behind my room picture. And I don't want it to go that far because then we couldn't see it. So I'm just going to say send backward. And then again, I can still adjust it, but the table is in front. The other way I could do that is I could select the table and right click on the table and go order bring to front. So that will bring it to the furthest front piece of the items that I have in my slide. If you want something else we put in the room, we could put a plant in the room. So there's a nice plant, add some color. Again, that's a little bit big for what I want it to be. So I can shrink it down and make it pretty small and just put it back there in the back corner. What else could I put in a room? Yeah, lots of different types of bookcases. Bookcases are very useful in a classroom. If you made this for a class, you can add lots of things. So you can get a populated bookcase or you can get a more empty bookcase. Yeah, you could put a filing cabinet. There's lots of stuff. But I want this one since it's sort of, the image is already sort of twisted. It's angled a little bit. So that way if I shoot it down, I can sort of put it up against the wall and it doesn't look completely out of place. So that sort of adds a little bit of dimension to my room, that there is depth, which just makes it a little bit more realistic instead of just a flat image. The other thing I like to do to help with that is if you go to the Format Options menu, there's this handy dandy tool called Drop Shadow. So you can sort of see, if I put that against a lighter background, if I turn it off, it's just sort of a flat image. If I click the Drop Shadow, all of a sudden there's a little hint of blur, of darkness around the edges. And I can make that a little bit more visible. I think let's try green, and we'll make it very big. So you can sort of see there's that fuzzy green cloud around the image, and that's what the shadow is. But I'm just going to make that small again and make it black, or you could make it gray, and then it sort of looks like a real shadow and gives a bit of dimension to your item. So I'm also going to do that with my table and my chair and my plant. And you can see now they look a little bit less flat and a little bit more 3D and real in this room. So it's just a little trick you can do to help liven up your room. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff. Let's add maybe one more small thing. We need a coffee cup, I think, or tea. I prefer tea. Google likes coffee cups better. And I'm just going to put that on my table because it's tiring to do all this creative work. And again, this is another image that's, no, I'm not going to crop that one because it's got some steam coming off of the cup. So I'll leave that. And then I can just place it on the table. It's still a little bit big, I think. That's, I think, a better size. So I can place it on the table, or I could place it on the bookshelf. And you can see it sort of looks like it's sitting in that shelf. So if you had a book, a ball, a globe, some sort of box, or pens or pencils, or a box of crayons, or if you're a math teacher and you want to put a compass or a ruler, or you're a science teacher and you want to put a scale or some other lab equipment, you can do those things and you can add them into a shelf. And so this would be your base of your room, and all these little things, maybe the chair, the coffee cup, the plant, those are things that I can use to link out, to link to something else, either within the slide deck if I'm doing a big deck, or to another source if I'm using it as a landing page. But yes, you can do all of these things, definitely like HGTV. You can add art, filing tables, anything that you would put in your regular classroom. If you can find a picture of it on Google, you can put it in here. But you're not limited to the Google search. So if you have a clip art source that you like and you have access to, you can import whatever images you want. For myself, I found that the Google search is usually pretty handy for some of these things, but you do have other options. So if you go to the Insert Image tab again, you can upload things from your computer. If you have them saved in your Google Drive or on your Google Photos, you can also do it by URL, or you can take a picture with your own camera or your device's camera, really. So there's lots of ways you can add images. All right, so that's sort of how I built the basics of a room. So if I come back to this room, this is sort of my landing page. So I've just also added a couple shapes. You can go back and do that. So here, this is the Insert Shape tool. I could add, I like the rounded rectangle, but any shape you like is fine. And then just start typing into it. So I put my instruction. If you do decide to use either a Bitmoji or clip art of a person or even an animal, and you want them to speak instructions, there are these call outs, sort of that comic book thing where somebody is saying something. So you can add one of those call outs, and then you can resize these. You can make them, resize them, move them around. And then for the speech bubble, you also have this little yellow dot at the bottom of the pointy bit that you can drag around anywhere around the call out and put it exactly up against somebody's mouth. There is also a thought bubble call out if they're thinking something but not saying it, so you can do that too. All right, so then I've set up these things in here. So the instructions here, they can click on this notebook and it is linked to some additional instructions, which are on slide 2. And then they can click on the door to get into the actual puzzles. So we'll do that, or I could scroll if I'm in here. And then I have my other classroom that is set up, a few more instructions. And now we're into the actual escape and we can start hunting for clues. So now we're in my escape room, and this is the page where I've hidden all of my clues, all of my hints. So it's sort of like a scavenger hunt or a hidden puzzle mystery. So you can see I've added lots of things: backpacks, decorations, posters, books, crayons, pencils, and any of them could be my hints. 4 of them actually are, so there are some red herrings. I also have a button to go back to the instructions and a button to go to the end when they've found all their clues. So to do this, I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'll show you what that is in just a minute. So if I click on some of these things, it just is the image. And then if I click on this book, this is one of my clues, and you can see it is linked to slide 21. So that if I click on this book, either in presentation mode, or I can click on this here, it will take me to slide 21 because this is one of my puzzles, and that's how they get there. And we're just going to go back up for the moment. This one. All right, so how can you add a link? I think the links are one of the most important things when using an escape, or when building an escape room. So if I wanted to turn this backpack into a link, I could click on it. It doesn't always show up here. So the best way to find it is, I'm not going to be able to do the backpack. All right, so this backpack is actually grouped with the hook that's behind it, and you cannot link grouped items. So we're going to pick something else. Forgot about that, but it's a good point to know. You cannot, I could ungroup it, and then I can link it. So we'll ungroup it, and then I'll just click on the backpack, and then I look for this chain icon at the top. You can also do Control K if you like keyboard shortcuts, but you'll always find it up here in the top menu bar. So if I do Insert Link, then my link toolbar comes up. So I could put any URL I wanted in here. If I wanted this to go to a YouTube video, if I wanted this to go to an article that my class is reading, if I want this to go to anything else, anything on the internet that you want your class to look at. Maybe you have an image that you want them to look at and you have the link to the image. You can put that in there. For this presentation, I'm keeping everything in one slide deck. So I'm going to use this slides in this presentation menu. And then I have all of the slides in my presentation, and I could pick any of them wherever I want this to go. You can do first or next or previous if you want it to go directly up or down. You could go first or last if you want it to go to the far ends of the presentation, but I'm going to pick slide 12. It's not where I'd actually want it to go, but again, this is a demonstration. So it's going to now link to slide 12. I just make sure I hit apply, and now it's ready to go. If I need to change that at all, I can just hit edit link and exit that, and then choose a new slide. So maybe we'll put it actually at slide 14 and then apply. And so if I want to see where that would take me, I click on it, and then I can test it by clicking on that blue button. And now I am here, and we don't want to stay there because that is the middle of the clue. All right. So that is how you add a link to jump around in your slide deck. But you may have noticed that if I go to present mode, when you're in present mode for Google Slides, if I click on the thing, you can see it turns into a hand and it takes me right where I want to go. But if I just clicked anywhere, not on a link, it would automatically move me forward one slide. And I don't want that to happen, because I don't want them to just click anywhere and move to the next slide, because I don't want them to go to the next slide until they find that specific clue. It doesn't matter what order they do my clues in, but I do want them to move based on the clues and not just random clicking. Because if they click once, they get here, and then they could just click. They can't, because I've added a trick. Otherwise, they might think they can just click anywhere and move all the way through, and that's not what we want. So the way I do that, if I go back to edit mode, this little thing here is a giant transparent rectangle, and I will prove that because I will make it not transparent. We'll make it bright green today, just as a demonstration. So if I drag it back to cover my entire slide, you can see that there are 6 things that are not hidden anymore. They are in front of the giant green rectangle. So those are my Post-it notes, my Pi Day poster, a wad of paper, and that notebook that I showed you earlier. And then the instructions and the finish directional links. So these 4 things are my clues, and those are the only things that people can click on. If they click anywhere else, if we go to present mode, they can't. It's blocked. But if I click here, I can go somewhere. If I go there, if I wanted to add that extra link, that backpack, if I wanted to make that visible as a clickable link, I would need to bring it to the front of my green rectangle. So I would click on it, right click, use that order function again from when we were designing our room, and I would want to bring it to the front. So it is the very front thing in the room. And now it's going to be definitely ahead of the green poster or the green rectangle. But I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to remove that link just because this is a live room that people can go find with that link I gave you. And so now I'm going to make my green rectangle transparent again. And that is an option for any shape you use. You can just make it transparent. You can see right through it, but you cannot click through it. But somebody was asking how I'm just going right back to what I clicked on when I was scrolling, because I was using the scroll wheel for that. It is the feature that you can sort of see in the left-hand column where I have some slides that look normal and then some slides that are sort of grayed out and have that eye with the slash through them. This is called the skip slide feature in Google Slides. So I right click and I have this skip slide option checked. I could uncheck it and then it will show up in a presentation, or I can check it and then it skips. So what does that mean? Again, if I present this, you might be familiar with that, the auto advance feature if you just clicked. So in this slide, you can't because I have that transparent shape. But if I don't just click, I could use my scroll wheel, I could use my arrow keys, I could use my space bar. And so if I'm tapping on my space bar, I could just click through. Or if I use my scroll wheel, I could just click through. But you can see you only see 3 slides because those are 3 slides that I have not hidden in my presentation, not skipped. So you can sort of go through the presentation, but not the whole thing. I've locked it so you can only go so far. So you can see the landing page, you can see the second instruction page, and you can see the end check page. But that's it. But if I do go in, if I click on the door and then click here to start, and then if I click on a clue, we'll go that one. Now if I start scrolling, you can see I can just scroll through these clues. So they're no longer skipped. I'm just using my scroll wheel or I'm using my space bar to go through and I can see all those slides. I don't want that to happen. So how I get around that a little bit is using having the skip slides with a few strategic unskipped slides, having the transparent shape to stop them from just clicking through directly. And then the other trick that helps with that is when I present, I'm going to go back up. You can see this little navigation bar. Google recently made this much smaller. It used to be that big black bar that took up like a quarter of the bottom of your screen. So now they've made it nice and small and petite and very, light in the corner, but you can still navigate. I can jump to any slide that I want to. And I don't want people to do that. So get around that option. You can just remove that navigation bar by adding a little bit to your share link. So if I was ready to share this and was going to share it with my students, I would go to the share and get the link, change it to anyone with the link can view. So your options here are restricted, which would like they have to sign in or be added to the slide. Which if you just want your class to be able to access this, you could do it that way. I find it's just easy to do it with anyone with the link. And then I don't want them to edit it. I don't want them to comment on it. I just want them to see the presentation. So I'll do viewer, I'll copy that link, and then I'm going to open up Notepad so you can see what I'm doing. And I'll just paste the link. So this first part, that's important. We don't want to touch that because that tells Google or tells the internet, tells your browser where to go to this particular presentation. We just want to change this a little bit at the end where it says edit USP equals sharing. That would let people open it as a Google Slides. They would see it as a slide deck, but they just wouldn't be able to edit it. But they could make a copy and edit and change things. I don't want them to do any of that. I want them to look at this like a web page. So I'm going to change this to preview RM equals minimal. And then if I grab this new link that I've created, I will copy that, go to a new browser tab, and go to that link. And you see now it opens up. You can still see the browser, so it's not fully in present mode, but it just looks like a web page. And if I go down to the bottom here, you cannot find that navigation bar. So now, yes, you could scroll, but you'll only get to those 3 slides that I've unhidden. But if you click, you can click on this little extra, you can go back, you can click on the door, click to start, and now I clicked on a poster that was one of those, so I get to see the clue, and then I can scroll back to the home page, but I can click around, and if I don't click on a clue that is in front of my rectangle, plexiglass rectangle, you can't go anywhere. You can only go to the clues that I want you to go to. So now what if we get into the clues? How do they answer a clue? There's a couple ways to do this. It can be pretty simple and straightforward. Let's do this one since we've seen it. So again, this is a escape room for Pi Day, which celebrates the number pi, or the irrational number pi that's used in math. It's celebrated on March 14th based on the first three digits of pi. So this question is talking about how many digits of pi do we need? Because it's an irrational number, it is infinitely long. It is impractical to use an infinitely long number in an everyday equation. So NASA has found for some of its most sensitive calculations, they're trying to find the size of the known universe. They don't need 1 trillion digits of pi. They just need some of these. NASA uses 15 digits of pi when it makes its most sensitive calculation. So you don't have to worry about memorizing 1 million or 1 trillion digits of pi. And then I can go back. These are just some other resources if you like pi. And we can go back and find another clue. So I have that to bring me back to my main page. Another simple one, similar vein, the multiple choice answer. So we have these notes on a sticky board. They all have symbols that could be pi, but which one is the mathematical symbol for pi? So if I thought this is a mathematical looking circle-y chart, that could be the mathematical symbol for pi. It would take me to a slide that says, nope, not quite, try again. So I can click on try again. I also, again, have that hint button. That is an optional thing you can add to your slides if it's relevant for you or for not. But yes, if I click on the yellow correct symbol, yes, great, awesome. Let's find another clue. All right. We did those two. We did this one. I showed you this one before. So this one is a little bit different. There's more options. It's a bit of a puzzle, but it's still sort of pretty simple. Which image doesn't belong of these? So balloons. So yes, the balloons are correct because everything else starts with PI. You could turn this into vocabulary questions. You could do review questions. But you can do, especially in Google Slides, you can do more than just sort of that multiple choice or fill in the blank that you could do with Google Forms. So the last clue I have is this one. There is a message crumpled by the trash can. Can you crack the code? So I have this strange sentence. Sir, I need a spicy pepperoni on today's pizza for lunch. And that translates into an 12, which are the first 11 digits of pi. And this is actually a real thing called Pilish. People decided to create a writing system that is based on the conceit of using following the digits in pi indicates or dictates the number of letters you must in the word in order. So people have written poems or pi poems or some longer pieces. Some guy even wrote a novel in Pilish. So again, if you want the hints and this link, they take you out to an article that describes what Pilish is. But if you're a literature or a language arts teacher and you want to bring some math into your language arts, have somebody write something in Pilish. We found 4 clues, and then the instructions told us to click on the magnifying glass when we did that. And again, we have a double check. Did we solve them all, or do we need to go back and find another? We did solve them all. So I chose as my final locking mechanism to use a Google Forms. And my previous session 2 in this series, is on Google Forms. So if you want more information about how to build a Google form, check out that video when it comes up on the NMC3 website. And so I would just enter all of my answers. And then I go next. It says, great job, we solved it, I submit. And then I use this to link back to the final slide in my presentation. But maybe if you're doing this for an assignment, you have a special code or number or date or alphanumeric something or a phrase that your students have to tell you or submit to you to prove that they have finished the puzzle. And that's up to you, however you might want to do that. But I did it this way, so I click on that. It brings me back. It's like, great, you solved it. Here's some more Pi fun if you want it. So that is sort of the basics of how to set up an escape room in Google Slides.